Please don't look. The alien women cried in fear, but the human did in frozen shock. Wind rolled through the wasteland, dragging ribbons of dust across broken metal and bone. The wreckage of a transport crawler lay half buried in sand, its hull still hissing with fading heat. Chains clattered inside the open hold where Latara hung suspended between rusted beams. Her once silver wings, symbols of an ancient race that once ruled this planet, were folded and bound in iron clamps. Each breath drew a hiss between her teeth. The humans called her asset. The desert called her dying. A mercenary named Sarek Dane paced before her. His armor was scavenged, pieces from half a dozen wars, each one stolen off a corpse. A jagged scar split his cheek, pink under the burning light. "Don't bother praying to your sky gods," he said. "Out here they charge by the head." Latara kept her gaze fixed on the horizon, slit visible through the cracked hull. Heat shimmered there, making the air waver like liquid glass. Her throat burned, her lips split. "Do what you came to do," she murmured. "Just don't look at me." Sarek laughed, a harsh sound swallowed by the wind. "Still proud, even with your wings in chains." He turned away, signaling his crew to move. Cables snapped tight. The crawler groaned back to life. As the convoy crept across the dunes, Latara's thoughts drifted beyond the pain. She remembered the crystalline towers of Veyra's capital before the humans came. Spires so tall they cut the sky. Markets scented with solar resin. The hum of wing beats filling the air like music. All gone now, bombed into dust during the final purge. A chain jerked, dragging her mind back. The vehicle hit a ridge. She swung against the beam, iron biting through her wrists. "Keep her alive," Sarek barked from the cockpit. "Buyers pay extra if she can still scream." The crew laughed, a hollow sound inside metal walls. Outside, the twin suns dipped lower. The desert began to cool. Just enough to remind her that night would come, and with it, the memory of those taken before her. She whispered into the rising wind, a prayer without language. Somewhere deep in the endless sands, the sound carried, faint but not unheard. Miles behind the convoy, Jetson Hale guided a battered skimmer along the ridgeline. The hum of its grav engine was a low growl against the desert's silence. He had followed the Merc band for 3 days, tracking the faint heat signature of their engines, waiting for a reason to strike. The transmission he'd intercepted that morning, one living Veyran female, unaltered, had been enough. He'd seen what unaltered meant, untouched by the genetic harvesters, still whole enough to be sold. He flexed his gloved hand around the throttle. The scar across his palm itched, a ghost from the war that ended 6 years ago, the same war that left him dishonorably discharged and alone. "Should have stayed gone, Hale," he muttered to himself. "You keep chasing ghosts." But the tracker beacon on his dash pulsed brighter, steady and insistent. He angled the skimmer down a dune slope, sand streaming behind him like comet tails. Inside the crawler, Latara stirred. Her vision blurred, but she caught movement beyond the slats. Something cutting through the desert haze, moving fast, trailing light. For a heartbeat, she thought it might be one of her own, come back for her. Then reality returned. Her people were gone. Sarek noticed too. "Heat signature on R6, he snapped. "Could be scav drones." The crew scrambled to the weapon turrets, swiveling the barrels toward the horizon. The crawler jolted, metal screeching. Dust clouds thickened until the sky turned amber. Jetson's skimmer broke through the haze. He fired a pulse round that slammed into the crawler's flank, shattering a wheel hub. The machine lurched sideways, throwing sparks and sand. Inside, chaos erupted. Mercenaries shouted. Weapons clanged. Sarek grabbed the nearest rifle and shouted, "Shoot him down before..." The second shot hit the power cell. Blue fire erupted through the rear compartment, washing everything in white light. Latara's restraint snapped. She fell hard against the deck, chains spilling like spilled serpents. For a moment she could only crawl, half blind, lungs searing from the smoke. She found a gap in the hull, pushed herself through, and tumbled onto the sand. The world tilted. Her vision tunneled. She heard shouting, engines, then a figure cutting through the storm, dark silhouette against the twin suns. He reached her side, voice muffled by the wind mask. "You're still breathing." Her response was a rasp. Don't look at me, human. Jetson froze. The words hit like a memory from another lifetime. Villages burning, wings torn from bodies, soldiers laughing while the commander said, "Don't look." "I'm not one of them," he said quietly, but she had already gone limp. He lifted her gently, feeling the faint tremor of life beneath bruised skin. The metal cuffs glowed where they met her wings. He cut them with his knife, careful not to tear the feathers. Blood beaded like quicksilver and vanished into the sand. When the last shackle fell, she exhaled, shallow but steady. The crawler lay broken 100 meters away, smoke spiraling into the twilight. Two mercs still moved, crawling through debris. Jetson drew his sidearm. 3 shots cracked the air, each one final. Silence returned, heavy and wide. The desert swallowed the echoes. He carried Latara to his skimmer, laying her across the seat, wrapping her in the thermal cloak from his pack. Her skin shimmered faintly under the twin moons, translucent as crystal. As he powered up the skimmer, he glanced once at her bound wings. They quivered, instinctively trying to unfurl. He reached out but stopped halfway. Touch meant history, and history meant ghosts. The engines rose to a low thrum. He turned the craft east toward the canyon outpost hidden beneath the cliffs. Night on Vera came fast. The temperature dropped 30 degrees in minutes. Wind howled across the dunes, erasing the tracks of battle. Latara stirred in her half-sleep, murmuring words in her native tongue. Jetson couldn't understand, but her tone carried grief so raw it pierced through armor and years. He adjusted the throttle, keeping the skimmer steady. "Hang on," he muttered. "We're not done yet." She opened her eyes briefly, silver reflecting starlight. "Why?" she whispered. "Because I owe the stars a debt," he said, "and maybe you're part of the payment." Her eyes closed again. The desert stretched endlessly ahead. Dunes like frozen waves, wind-tracing ridges that glowed under the moons. Far behind them, faint and small, a flare burst. Sarek's signal to surviving mercenaries. Jetson saw it but didn't turn back. "Let them come," he murmured. "They'll find what's left." An hour later, he reached the canyon's mouth, guiding the skimmer through a narrow crack between black stone walls. Hidden inside was a hollow carved by old mining drills, a refuge he'd claimed years ago. Dim lights flickered as sensors recognized his biosign. He parked the skimmer beside a stack of supplies, then lifted Latara out, careful not to jar her wings. She was lighter than he expected, her body temperature cool like polished stone. He laid her on a cot, connected a med-gel line to the injector at her wrist, and waited for the pale liquid to flow. Slowly, her breathing eased. He sat back against the wall, removing his mask. The air smelled of dust, oil, and faint ozone from the generator. For the first time in years, he spoke to someone other than ghosts. "You're safe for now," he said softly. "Tomorrow I'll find you water. Food, maybe what's left of your kind." Her eyelids flickered. "None left," she whispered. He said nothing. Outside, the desert wind keened through the canyon like a lost voice. Jetson looked at her wings again, the torn feathers twitching as if trying to remember flight. He couldn't tell whether she dreamed of escape or of falling. He reached for the blanket and pulled it over her, careful not to cover the wings completely. Then he sat by the dying firelight, rifle across his knees, watching the stars blink above the canyon mouth. Somewhere beyond those stars, he thought, the war still burned. But here, at least for tonight, the desert held its breath. And the human who once believed he had nothing left had found, without understanding how, a reason to keep fighting. Morning on Vara did not begin with sunrise. It began with vibration. The planet's crust shuddered as heat bled back into the sand. By the time the first light struck the canyon rim, the desert already simmered like a forge. Jetson Hale was awake before the glow reached the mouth of the hollow. He had dismantled half his rifle through the night, polishing the emitter coil, checking the coolant line. Habit kept his hands busy. Guilt kept his mind awake. Each spark from the repair torch reflected in the small pool of water beside the cot where Latara slept. She dreamed fitfully. A low hum escaped her throat, something between a song and a code. Faint energy ripples shivered along her torn feathers, painting the walls with silver shadows. Jetson watched in silence. He had seen soldiers die screaming, but he had never seen anyone dream like they were trying to sing themselves back to life. When she woke, her eyes tracked the roof first, then him. "You stayed," she said, voice hoarse. "I said I would." He set the rifle aside. "How's the pain?" "Distant," she murmured, "like it belongs to someone else." He offered a canteen. She drank slowly, each swallow deliberate, as if tasting a memory. The water caught light around her lips. For a moment he forgot the war, the orders, the things men did when no one was watching. "Sarek's alive. He fired a flare last night. He won't let his prize go." She tried to stand, faltered. Jetson caught her before she hit the wall. Her fingers brushed his forearm. Tiny sparks jumped between skin and alien crystal veins. He felt it like static through armor, a heartbeat that wasn't his. "I won't slow you," she said. He shook his head. "You're not slowing me. You're the reason I'm still here." They left the canyon at first light. The skimmer's turbines howled as they climbed over the ridge, leaving trails of dust behind. Latara sat beside him, wrapped in his cloak. She watched the dunes slide past like ocean waves frozen mid-storm. "Your people built cities here," he said. "Why stay on a world that kills everything?" "It wasn't always this way," she answered. "The twin suns were softer once. We flew between them, harvesting light. Then humans came and split the orbit to mine the core. The balance died." He exhaled slowly. "We do that a lot." She turned her gaze on him. "And yet you saved one of us." "Maybe that's why," he replied. The scanner pinged. "Olahente." 3 red blips approached from the southwest. Jetson throttled down, steering toward a stretch of broken terrain, half-buried transport wrecks and jagged rock spires. "Hold tight," he warned. Latara gripped the console. "What is this place?" "Old battlefield. Perfect for ghosts in ambushes." The first shot came from above, a plasma streak that sliced a ridge apart. Sand erupted. Jetson veered sharply, engine screaming. 2 more blasts followed, painting the air with blue fire. "They found us," he muttered. He dove into the wreck field, weaving between twisted metal ribs. Shards of ship hull reflected sunlight like knives. Behind them, 3 assault bikes tore through the haze, their riders armored in scavenged tech. Sarek's crimson insignia sprayed across their helmets. Jetson flipped a switch. "Hold on." He slammed the skimmer sideways, scraping along a fallen fuselage. Sparks showered them. The nearest bike overshot and clipped the debris, spinning out in a fireball. Latara covered her face as shrapnel rained. "2 left." "I see them." Jetson fired a burst from the rear turret. Energy bolts ripped across the dunes, one catching a rider square in the chest. The last merc ducked low, swerving closer. Sarek's voice echoed through the comm. "You can't hide, soldier." "The girl belongs to me," Jetson snarled. "Come take her." He braked suddenly. The merc shot past, too close. Jetson swung the rifle one-handed and fired. The plasma bolt punched through the bike's engine. It exploded midair, scattering molten fragments across the sand. For a heartbeat, there was only silence. Then the horizon shimmered again. Another convoy, larger, 5 vehicles pushing dust plumes skyward. Sarek's reinforcements. "Outnumbered," Latara whispered. "Story of my life." Jetson turned the skimmer toward the ravine. "We make a stand there." The ravine cut deep into the desert, walls of red stone rising like broken teeth. They slid inside and set down near the narrowest bend. Jetson jumped out, unloading weapon crates. "Help me set these charges." Latara knelt beside him, hands trembling but precise. The devices hummed as she linked them telepathically, syncing timers faster than any human fingers could. He glanced at her, impressed. "You understand our tech?" "Your tech was built on ours," she replied simply. Engines roared above the rim. Dust cascaded down like rain. Jetson crouched behind a boulder, rifle ready. When they reached the center, detonate. She nodded, eyes glowing faintly as circuits across the detonators lit blue. Moments stretched thin. The first transport rolled into view, metal grinding against stone. Behind it, Sarek's command vehicle descended on anti-grav thrusters. He stood on the open deck, scar glinting, grin feral. "You should have left her to die, Hale. Now you die with her." "Funny," Jetson said. "I was thinking the same about you." He squeezed the trigger. The first charge erupted, blasting sand and flame upward. Vehicles flipped, engines shrieked, smoke filled the gorge. Latara triggered the second wave. Shock waves rippled through rock, toppling ledges onto the convoy. Mercs scattered, shouting over comms. Through the chaos, Sarek leapt from his platform, landing hard but upright. His armor glowed red from built-in shielding. He raised a pulse cannon. "You think you're the hero, soldier? She's not your salvation, she's your curse." Jetson rolled from cover as the blast tore through his last position. Rocks vaporized. He fired back, each shot sparking off Sarek's armor. Latara felt energy gather behind her eyes. The telepathic hum that had once bound her to her people surged like lightning through her veins. Without thinking, she extended one hand toward Jetson. A filament of light bridged the gap between them. His vision flared white, reflexes sharpened. The next volley he fired struck with surgical precision, finding the seam beneath Sarek's pauldron. The merc staggered, roaring. "What did you—" Jetson gasped. "Our minds linked," she said through clenched teeth. "You see what I see." They moved as one, he firing, she predicting each motion. The world slowed. Bullets became sparks in still air. Together they advanced through smoke and wreckage until Sarek, bleeding and furious, fell to one knee. "Finish it," Latara cried. Jetson hesitated, gun aimed at Sarek's heart. "You surrender?" The merc spat blood. "Never." Then a hidden blade flicked from his gauntlet. He lunged. Jetson sidestepped, firing point blank. The bolt punched through armor and out the other side. Sarek collapsed without sound. Silence reclaimed the ravine. Jetson lowered the rifle, chest heaving. Around him, fires crackled. The stench of burned metal hung thick. Latara approached, the glow fading from her eyes. She placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. "It's done." He looked at her, not the alien enemy from war posters, not a captive, but a being who had fought beside him, trusted him with her mind. "You saved my life, and you gave me reason," she answered softly. The connection between them flickered, fragile but undeniable. The link had shown them fragments of each other, his guilt, her loss, both unbearable yet shared. Jetson turned toward the horizon where smoke rose into the orange sky. "Or we'll come." "Then we keep moving," Latara said. "Together." He nodded once. "Together." By dusk, they reached the edge of the ravine. The suns dipped behind distant dunes, painting the sand in blood and gold. Latara spread her wings slightly, still broken but shimmering anew. Feathers caught the dying light, scattering it into prisms. Jetson watched in silence. For the first time since the war, beauty didn't hurt to look at. She sensed his thought and smiled faintly. "Humans burn their worlds," she said, "but sometimes they light the dark." He met her gaze, and sometimes, he said, the dark fights back. They climbed onto the skimmer. Engines flared, lifting them above the wrecked battlefield. Below, the desert buried the dead beneath drifting sand. Ahead, the night stretched infinite and uncertain. But in that vast silence, something had changed. An echo between human and alien, forged not in conquest, but in survival. As they vanished into the horizon glow, the desert whispered back the only truth that mattered. That even in dust and ruin, life could still find its way to hope. The twin moons had already crossed each other's paths when the skimmer finally slowed above a sea of stone pillars. The air smelled of rust and ozone. Static trembled along the horizon as a storm gathered its charge. Jetson guided the craft between the spires and set down beside a collapsed relay tower. "Shelter," he said. The wind answered with a long metallic moan. Latara stepped onto the sand, wings half spread for balance. The feathers had hardened into fragments of light, still scarred but healing. She touched one of the towers, feeling the old hum inside the metal. "Your people built this before the war." He nodded. "Relay 9. I was stationed here the day the ceasefire burned inside the ruin. Scraps of wire hung like cobwebs." A control console flickered when Jetson kicked the generator awake. Pale light spilled across the chamber, illuminating faded human warnings. "Authorized personnel only." Latara traced the letters with her fingers. "You leave your marks on everything you touch." "Helps us remember what we broke," he said. They worked in silence. Jetson unpacked rations. She searched for intact cables. Outside, lightning strobed behind a wall of sand. Each flash threw their shadows against the walls like ghosts reenacting the war. When the first gust hit, the tower groaned. Dust poured through cracks in the ceiling. Jetson moved closer, shielding her as grit swirled in miniature storms around their boots. The storm will bury us for a few hours. Good cover. Good prison, too, she murmured. He caught her tone. You think I'm like them? Her gaze met his, steady, silver, unreadable. You fight like them, speak like them, yet you hesitate. They never did. I hesitate because I've seen what not hesitating does. Thunder cracked overhead. For a long time, only the storm spoke. By night's deep hour, the worst had passed. A strange calm settled, air heavy, sky glowing faintly from static discharges still rippling across the dunes. Jetson stepped outside, scanning the horizon with thermal goggles. The sensors painted the desert in amber outlines, dunes, wreckage, nothing else. He turned to go back inside, then froze. A second heat signature blinked into view far behind the ridge. One rider. Fast. He whispered, no, impossible. Inside, Latara looked up as he re-entered. What is it? The storm hit him. Sarek's not dead. Her pulse quickened. You saw him fall. I saw him drop. Didn't see him die. The console beeped faintly, long-range scanner intercepting an encrypted signal. Jetson amplified it. Through static came a distorted voice, deep and cold. You took something that belonged to me, Hale. I'm coming to take it back. Latara's eyes flashed. He hunts again. Then he'll find hunters waiting. They spent the next hour fortifying the tower. Jetson dragged debris to block the main entrance, turning the ruin into a choke point. Latara climbed the central beam, using her weightless balance to attach a motion beacon. Her movements were fluid, almost graceful, despite the damage. When she dropped back to the floor, Jetson caught her by instinct. For a moment, their faces were inches apart, dust, sweat, and light between them. She drew a breath that trembled. Your heartbeat, she whispered. It sounds like thunder. He stepped back quickly, clearing his throat. Adrenaline, fear, experience. The faintest smile touched her lips. We name it differently. An hour later, the tracker lit red. Sarek approached from the east, flanked by two drones hovering like metal hawks. His armor had been rebuilt, patchwork plates powered by stolen reactors. The wound in his shoulder glowed through the cracks, pulsing with unstable energy. Latara saw it first through the slit in the barricade. He's fused his body with machines. Pain makes men inventive, Jetson muttered, chambering a new cell. Outside, Sarek's voice boomed through an amplifier. Hale! You think she makes you better? You think saving one of them changes what you are? Jetson leaned against the wall. If you're here to talk, leave a message. If you're here to step closer. Sarek laughed, sound distorting through the speaker. Then the drones dove, firing twin streams of plasma. The tower exploded into motion. Heat, dust, screaming metal. Jetson rolled behind a fallen girder, returning fire. One drone shattered midair, raining sparks. The second swung wide, clipping Latara's wing with a glancing bolt. She hissed in pain, but stayed upright, eyes glowing like molten silver. She extended her hand again, finding the thread between them. The mental link reignited, flooding his vision with her perception. Trajectories, temperature gradients, shifting sound frequencies. He used it without question, adjusting aim by instinct. The next shot pierced the drone's core. It fell, exploding on impact. Silence for a heartbeat. Then Sarek charged through the smoke. His armor clanged with each step, heavy as a tank. You could have walked away, he snarled, but you always need someone to save. Jetson ducked behind a pillar. Maybe I just hate men who sell lives. Sarek's gauntlet snapped open, releasing a pulse that blew half the wall away. Debris slammed into Jetson's shoulder, knocking him sideways. The rifle skidded across the floor. Latara dropped from the beam, landing between them. Her voice cut through the ringing silence. Enough! Sarek's face twisted. The pet speaks. Release your hatred, she said. It's already eating you. He raised his cannon. It keeps me alive. Before he could fire, Jetson tackled him from behind. The weapon discharged into the ceiling, showering molten fragments. The two men hit the ground, fists striking armor, sparks flying. Sarek slammed an elbow into Jetson's ribs, then rolled free, grabbing a jagged pipe. He swung. The blow glanced across Jetson's splitting skin. "Still think you're different from me?" Sarek growled. "Yeah," Jetson spat blood. "I fight for someone besides myself." He lunged, drove his knife under Sarek's chest plate. The blade sank halfway before the Merc's servo motors locked, trapping his arm. Latara stepped forward, energy building around her palms. "Move!" Jetson dove aside. The air between her hands blazed into a spear of light that cut through Sarek's armor. The blast hurled him backward into the generator. Electricity surged, crawling up his limbs. The reactor screamed. "Out!" Jetson shouted. He grabbed Latara, pulling her through the hole in the wall just as the core detonated. Fire tore the night apart, throwing them across the sand. They hit the ground hard. For a moment, neither moved. Then Jetson coughed, rolled onto his back. The tower behind them collapsed in a pillar of flame. Latara rose slowly, wings spreading in the glow. Ash rained like snow around her. "He's gone," Jetson forced a smile. "Finally." But even as he said it, he saw motion through the flames. Sarek crawling from the wreckage, half his armor fused to flesh, eyes burning with unnatural light. "Can't kill what you made," Sarek rasped. His hand closed around a broken rifle. He raised it, shaking. Latara turned, but exhaustion slowed her. Jetson threw himself between them. The bolt hit his shoulder plate, scorching through to the bone. He fell to one knee, teeth clenched against the pain. Sarek laughed once, a dry, broken sound, before collapsing for good. His body went still, smoke curling from the seams. Latara knelt beside Jetson, pressing her palm to the wound. A faint shimmer pulsed between their skin. "Don't move." Warmth spread through his arm, followed by a surge of clarity. The pain dulled. He met her eyes, whispering, "You heal with light." "With memory," she said softly. "I give back what the war took." He touched her wrist. "Then give me nothing more. I've already taken too much." She didn't answer, only kept her hand steady until the burn faded to a scar. Dawn came quietly. Smoke trailed into a sky washed pale by the first sun. Around them lay the remains of men who could not let go of hate. Latara sat on a rock, wings half folded, watching the horizon. "You risked everything for me." "Why?" Jetson cleaned his rifle in silence, then said, "Because somewhere once someone should have done the same for you." She looked at him, and something softened behind her expression, a warmth that had nothing to do with heat. He stood, slinging the weapon over his shoulder. "We can't stay. Patrols will come. Then we go where they can't follow," she said. "There are caverns beneath the northern ridges. My people used them when the sky burned." He nodded. "Lead the way." As they climbed onto the skimmer, wind swept through the ruins, carrying ash toward the rising light. Behind them, the broken tower collapsed completely, burying Sarek's remains beneath the sand. Ahead stretched open desert, dangerous, endless, but free. Latara's hand rested lightly on Jetson's arm as the engines ignited. "You said once that you owed the stars a debt," she said. "Maybe you've paid it." He looked at her, then toward the horizon. "Maybe debts like that never end. Maybe they just change shape," she smiled faintly. "Then we'll change them together." The skimmer lifted, turning north. The rising suns painted the dunes in silver fire. Somewhere behind them, the last echoes of war faded beneath the wind. Ahead waited whatever came next, new hunters, new choices, a bond tested again and again until it became something neither human nor alien could name. For now, though, the desert was silent. In the world, just for a moment, felt like it could begin again. The desert ended where the red cliffs began. Beyond them waited wind-carved labyrinths of glass and stone, echoes of a world that had once been alive. Jetson guided the skimmer along a dry canyon, engines whispering. His shoulder still ached from Sarek's shot, but the pain reminded him that he was still human, still breathing. Latara sat beside him, wings folded tight, eyes fixed on the horizon where storms brewed like restless spirits. They had been riding for 2 days. The world behind them had turned to rumor. The world ahead was only myth. She spoke little, saving strength, yet every time she shifted, faint light flickered between the feathers of her healing wings. At dusk, they reached the mouth of the northern caverns. The entrance yawned beneath a ridge of obsidian, cool air spilling from within. Jetson set the skimmer down, killing the engines. The silence that followed felt almost sacred. Home? He asked quietly. Not anymore, Latara replied, but the stones remember. Inside, the tunnels glowed with their own dim light, veins of crystal running through the rock. She moved ahead, fingertips brushing the wall as though greeting old friends. The echoes of their footsteps returned in harmonies, faint and haunting. Jetson looked up. It's beautiful. It was sanctuary once, she said. When the bombs fell, my kin fled here. The cave shielded them for a while. Then hunger came. Then silence. He swallowed the question forming on his tongue, how many survived? The answer hung already in the air. They made camp in a vast chamber where water dripped from stalactites into a shallow pool. Jetson built a small fire, watching the blue flames dance across crystal shards. Latara knelt at the pool's edge, washing dust from her face. The reflection staring back at her was someone she barely knew, half warrior, half ghost. Every part of this planet carries scars, she said. Even the air feels wounded. Scars mean something tried to heal, he replied. She turned to him, eyes catching the firelight. Do humans believe they can still heal? He hesitated. Some do. Most just try to forget. She studied him for a long moment. You don't forget. No, he admitted. I remember everything. Outside the cave, thunder rumbled. A storm crawled across the dunes, throwing spears of lightning into the sand. The glow reached down the tunnels like distant artillery fire. Jetson watched it in silence until Latara spoke again. When we fought together, I saw your memories. The city on fire, the children you couldn't reach. He nodded once. That was Vera's capital. We were told the evacuation had failed. Command said we were clearing hostiles. We weren't. Her voice softened. And since then? I walk the desert, he said. Fix what I can, break what needs breaking. She folded her wings tighter. Maybe the stars sent you here to end what began there. Maybe they sent me to start something new. Their eyes met across the fire, the space between them charged with a quiet recognition neither could name. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving the desert washed clean. Jetson woke to find Latara standing at the mouth of the cavern, wings open wide to the rising light. Thin strands of energy threaded through the feathers, knitting them together. When she moved, the motion stirred a breeze scented with ozone and earth. You're healing fast, he said, joining her. My kind draws strength from the sun, she answered. Yours burns under it. Story of humanity, he muttered. We build in fire, then wonder why everything hurts. She smiled faintly. Yet you endure. A deep rumble interrupted them. Jetson turned toward the horizon. Dust clouds again, military hovercrafts this time, their silhouettes unmistakable. Human patrol. They found the signal, he said. Sarek's transmitter must have pinged before he died. Latara's expression hardened. They will kill us both. Not if we make them understand. They never understood before. He checked his rifle, then paused. Then we'll show them something new. The patrols arrived by midday, 5 armored transports circling the ridge. Loudspeakers blared. Identify yourself, Hale. You are ordered to surrender and deliver the alien asset for retrieval. Latara's wings shimmered, feathers rattling like glass in wind. They call me asset. Not today. He stepped forward into the sunlight, rifle slung but ready. A soldier in polished armor approached. Captain Roan, his former commanding officer. Jetson Hale, Roan said through the helmet speaker. You're under arrest for aiding enemy species in possession of restricted tech. She's not enemy, Jetson replied. She's proof the war was wrong. Orders stand, Roan snapped. Step aside. Behind him, the troopers raised rifles. Latara moved to Jetson's side, wings unfurling. The light pouring from them painted the sand silver. The soldiers hesitated, murmuring through comms. Jetson's voice carried over the wind. You kill her, and you prove everything they said about us was true. Roan's visor hid his eyes. Stand down, Hale. No. For a breath, time held still. Then one nervous soldier fired. The bolt scorched the ground near Latara's feet. Instinct took over. Jetson dropped to one knee, returning a warning shot that shattered a transport's cannon. Sand erupted. The skirmish ignited instantly, blinding light, thunder of plasma. Latara lifted her hands, currents of raw energy spiraled outward, forming a barrier of luminous threads. Bolts struck the field and dispersed into sparks. The soldiers faltered, shouting confusion. "Stop!" Jetson yelled, but no one heard. He turned to her. "Can you hold it?" Not long. Sweat beaded on her brow, light dimming. He made a choice. "Then I end it now." He charged through the barrier, sprinting across open sand. Bolts streaked past, grazing armor. He reached the nearest transport and slammed an EMP grenade onto its hull. The explosion crippled the craft, throwing men backward. In the chaos, Roan advanced, weapon raised. "Hail! Don't make me!" Jetson stopped. "You already did once." He dropped his rifle, letting it sink into the sand. "You want her? You'll have to walk through me." Behind him, Latara's strength broke. The shield collapsed in a burst of white fire, wind roaring outward. The soldiers staggered. For a moment, silence fell again. Blinding, absolute. When the light faded, she stood behind Jetson, wings burning like living flame. Feathers shed trails of sparks that curled upward and vanished. Every wound was gone. Every scar shone gold. Roan lowered his weapon, awe replacing anger. "What is she?" "Alive," Jetson said, "and free." Latara's voice carried like music. "You fight the endless war because you fear the quiet. Listen to it now." The wind died. No one moved. Even the desert seemed to hold its breath. Rowan took a step back, lowered his rifle fully. "You disappear, Hale. Both of you." "I never saw this," Jetson nodded once. "That's the smartest order you've ever given." The captain turned away, signaling retreat. One by one, the transports lifted, engines echoing across the cliffs until only dust remained. As silence returned, Jetson looked at Latara. The glow around her dimmed until only warmth remained. "You didn't have to save them," he said. "They needed to see we could choose mercy." He smiled wearily. "You sound almost human. Or you sound almost Varen." They both laughed softly, a sound strange in the desert's emptiness. He touched the edge of one wing, feeling heat but no pain. "What happens now?" "We rebuild," she said simply. "Somewhere the stars can't find us for a while." "Together?" Her answer was a quiet nod. They returned to the caverns that night. The fire burned low, casting amber light across stone. Jetson leaned against the wall, eyes half closed. "When you flew before," he said, "what did it feel like?" "Freedom," she replied. "Weight and wind arguing with each other. Every heartbeat a promise to rise again." He looked up at the faint shimmer of her wings. "Show me someday." "Someday," she agreed. Outside, dawn crept over the ridges. The first rays touched the desert, turning every grain of sand to gold. In that light, the two figures stood side by side, a human who had forgotten how to hope, and an alien who had learned again how to trust. Their shadows stretched together across the canyon floor until they blended into one shape. Above them, the sky opened wide and endless, carrying the hush of new beginnings.